Welcome back to LearnBytes, the show that delivers bite-sized pieces of wisdom so you can learn how to increase your efficiency and productivity, embrace your natural creativity, and lead with impact. I'm Samantha Garrett from Using Technology Better, and joining me on the show today, I am very excited to welcome Claire Rogers, the Executive Director of Oho. Claire is here to talk to us today about leadership, so let's jump in and meet her and get the interview going. Hello, Claire. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sam. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's lovely to have you. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Now, I've just let everyone know a little tiny bit about yourself and mentioned that you're going to be chatting to us about leadership, which I'm super excited for. But I thought that before we get into the questions, you might like to tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're passionate about.
Yes, Sam. Well, I'm a leader who has, over many different contexts, brought change in what I'd call restorative or transformation context. And really looking at what happens for customers and working out what motivates them and what excites them, and then transforming organization services products into something that they love and adore and then want more of.
I love it. That's the words that popped into my head were very customer centric.
Yeah, although I find emotionally I don't warm to those words. A lot of organizations use them, but they don't live it.
Yeah.
And so it's a kind of, for me, that's corporate speak.
Yep.
I just want customers to love products, and they usually know how to make products better. And so if you spend some time with them, they'll tell you what's needed.
Yeah.
And then they become more loyal.
Yeah. And you said love and adore, and that's that emotion straight in that word. And that actually word jumped out to me, which now that you've said that, like compared to customer centric, which sounds like very dry and very like unemotional, I can see why love and adore is a much nicer way to think about it.
Yeah. Well, it's how we like to, and it's the products that we've fallen in love with and adore are the ones that we talk about with other people.
Yeah. Totally.
So if you can get to that stage, then it's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. And I thought too, do you want to share just a little bit about Oho before we jump in? Because I know we have a lot of people in the education sector, a lot of teachers watching the show, and I'm super keen for them to hear about Oho.
Yeah, sure. And it's actually just in the last week we've discovered there's a little bit of love and adore going on in our client base, because we're actually celebrating 1 million verifications. So what we do is automate the ongoing verification of licenses, such as teachers, working with children checks, allied health professionals, so psychologists, all those medical professions. And that means that if you're a principal or an educator, that that everyone in your school or institution is safe to work with children or to perform the professional services that they're qualified for on a week-by-week basis. So so there's a little bit of love coming our way from our customers, because we've just hit 1 million accreditations being verified since Oho started. And so it's a fantastic milestone, but of course we've got to keep going, and our next target is 10 million. We want to get children and communities safe by organisations fulfilling their responsibility to regularly check that their staff and volunteers and contractors are safe to work in their organisations.
Congratulations. That's an amazing milestone. And it's so good to think that, that does equal that safety. Because I remember when we chatted about it initially, as you said to me, like organisations will check for these things upon entry of a staff member, and then that's kind of it. And the mind boggles at what that could mean. So,
Yeah, that's right. And, we know from some recent research that it's most likely, if there's going to be a problem, it's most likely to be someone that the child knows, but not a family member. And that's where all those people who serve children, they come into the frame. And so having those clear fences, and we talk about, it's like if you check it when someone joins you, it's like having a good lock on the front door, but all your windows are open.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
kids are in bed, and the kids are in bed and you're hoping that they're going to be safe. So,
And not only that, you've got responsibility to keep them safe and you're not actually enacting on that. Yeah.
And a lot of organizations don't realize that the legal liability has shifted to organizations and not to the survivor to prove that they weren't cared for properly. Yeah. And so, the obligations and the penalties and the adverse, impact of having an incident is really profound now for organizations. Even schools, just letting a woodworking group come on site. If there is a problem, the school will actually be liable. And so you start to think there, well, the community is actually not just my employees and volunteers, but it's people who might use my premises that need verification. So, so we exist to help organizations automate and get that control on their safety.
I love it. Thank you. And I will definitely, I always say at the end of the show, we pop the links below, but in this case, I want to kind of let anyone that's listening that's like, we need that. I'll definitely link all that and you can get in touch with Claire. So
fantastic. Thank you.
I think it's time to get on with the questions. What do you think?
Yes, I agree.
Let's do it. All right. So I'm going to get my timer handy. So we've got 8 questions in 4 minutes. I'll try and give you a 1-minute warning. So if you see me looking down, that's what that's about. Leadership. All right. You ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. First mobile phone and current phone.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't remember my first one, but I do remember a copper flip phone that I was very proud of at one stage. My current is an Apple iPhone 11. You get hooked into the Apple ecosystem, love and adore, get delight. And so here we are.
It's a great example of it, hey? What is the most important quality for every leader to have, Claire?
Curiosity. We never actually know the answers, but we've been promoted, or we get given more and more responsibility because we've managed knowledge and information well. But unless we are curious to seek to truly understand what people think, what they're experiencing, what's driving things, then we will not be a good leader. So curiosity.
What do you find most rewarding or most challenging about being a leader?
Most rewarding is seeing people grow in their development as a leader or as a contributor and their impact expanding.
Yeah. Beautiful. What's one thing you tell yourself when facing uncertainty?
Oh, look, someone will have done something similar before.
Oh, interesting. Oh, we might come back to that. It's the first time I've had that on the show. Yeah. Biggest leadership lesson learned so far?
Make it safe for the truth to be told. So if the truth isn't told, it's really hard to solve problems. But it's often people have anxieties or fears about actually saying what's really going on. But when you've got what's really going on out on the table, we can all work on it together and solve it. So making it safe for the truth to be told.
We're gonna have to come back to that one too. I've got two mentally bookmarked. All right, number 6, and you've got 1 minute 55, plenty of time. If there was one person you could spend an hour with, who would it be and why?
Do you know what? I forgot to think about that question. Can we come back to that one?
Sure, you pondered in the background, not a worry. All right, let's move on to book, video, or podcast you would recommend to others.
Yeah, Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette. He challenges our assumptions of what leadership is and really looks at how leaders can tap leadership at all levels of their organization. I don't know if you know the story, but he turned aside. Actually, this is the person I'd love to spend an hour with, actually. He turned the worst submarine in the US Navy around in about 12 months to the best one in the Navy. And when you get underneath what he did, it was all about empowering everybody in the organization, in the submarine, to bring leadership to the problems and challenges that they saw in front of them, not to just push the decisions up the tree. So quite amazing flip of leadership. You know, we talk about servant leadership a lot, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what does that mean and how do I do it? Whereas his book's just really practical about, you know, what decisions I'd reserve for myself as a leader and what decisions we would encourage and delegate and get people to apply their thinking to in whatever part of the organization they're running.
Excellent. Definitely. I think we've had that one mentioned actually, but you've explained it so beautifully. I'm really intrigued now. So thank you. And you've answered two questions.
It's not a hard read either. It's quite short.
Oh, that's always good to know, isn't it? It's a bonus. Oh, 5 seconds. Okay. How will you use your leadership skills to make a difference to the world?
Well, I think I've already explained that with Oho. I'm really excited to be growing a business that matters, that has purpose and brings safety to our community at a new level.
Lovely. So good. Thank you. And really good. You got like 2 seconds over, which I think is completely fine. So wonderful, right. Wonderful. All right. So those 2 things that I've mentally bookmarked. The first one around uncertainty, I love that. You said, was it someone will have figured it out or someone will have figured that out before?
Or done something similar.
Done something similar. That was the way. Yeah. That's such a fascinating way to look at it. And that's why I kind of paused and went, oh, yeah, because at the end of the day, we've always kind of got the experiences of others you know, we can tap into.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of comes back to that curiosity I talked about at the beginning, that, you know, I get curious about, well, how did you solve that? Because there might be something I can learn from how you tackled it to then apply to my uncertainty. You know, as a leader, the more senior you get to, the more problems you get that are not easy to solve. And, you know, like the complex ones rise to the top. And so you're not going to be able to look at the problems that are brought to you to solve and just go, oh, this is the answer. Pretty rare, because your own team will have thought of that. So then it's about, well, where can I go to get some insight on how to think about this problem and this challenge? And, you know, everything has something similar to another context. And so, yeah, that's the best way to deal with uncertainty, I think.
And it makes me think too, I think I've had conversations with others on this before, but really that idea of that sometimes we can think the leaders are the ones that they're leaders because they know how to solve the problem. But that's, from what I'm hearing there, that's not necessarily the case. They're the ones that know how to find out how to solve it, but they don't just have all the answers, as you said.
Yeah, and the worst kind of leadership I find is, and we've all had leaders like this, you walk in and the leader goes, oh, go do that. And doesn't explain why. There's no context, there's no shape to it, and you go and do it. Well, you know, I didn't have to bring my brain to that. The leader said, go do that. Yeah. And you go and do it and it doesn't work, and then you go, see, that leader doesn't know very much. And like, really? You know, as a leader, if we examine the problems and look at parallels and perspectives, then, you know, we can kind of look at the nuances and the grey areas and go, well, yeah, actually, we are uncertain. We're still uncertain after examining this, but we know enough to take this first step.
Yeah.
And then when we take the first step, let's have another look and we'll see what's going on around us. And maybe we have to retreat because it wasn't the right thing. We'll try that now because we learned. Or maybe actually now we can take the next step. And that comes from that wisdom and curiosity, actually, to see how things, you know, how is a decision of the organization being reacted to? You know, how are people leaning into it? Is it helping them with their job? Is it not helping them with their job? You know, or, you know, how's a customer reacting to this product change? Do they love it? Do they hate it? You know, I was using a system, one of our systems, I won't name it, yesterday, and I was swearing at it because they've changed the whole layout and I can't find the most important thing I needed. complete the task. I literally cannot find it, and I've had to ask 3 other people who use the system, where is it? Where is this gone? You know, and so, you know, curiosity to try and understand where would the users of this experience actually want it to be, and then you stay kind of on track with customer experience. So yeah.
So tell me about this safe space. This is my curiosity now. I'm super interested when you mentioned about creating that safe space. How do you go about that, Claire?
Yeah, well, the leader has to do it first, because no one's going to do it. The only person who'll do it first is the leader. It takes a very courageous direct report to speak up and say, you know what, this is what's really going on, especially if it's bad news or complex news or, you know, disappointing news. And we all love to perform well in our jobs, and the hierarchical system or the performance management systems in organizations are geared towards, you know, the good news quite a lot. And, you know, bonuses are tied to it, and all of those kinds of things drive, you know, potentially a fear of speaking up or a fear of having the courage to say what's really going on. So it has to start with the leader. And I usually talk about it intentionally. I sometimes with a team will say, you know, set up that I want it to be a safe place. Of course, they will only trust me on that the more disclosures they make that I don't react to with judgment or with criticism. But if you can get that wheel going in an organization, you know, decisions get made so much faster. People are so much happier because they're actually learning how to solve problems and how to engage with things that normally we just sweep under the carpet. We're doing the hard stuff, you know, and succeeding. So it does come from the leader, and the leader has to be willing to be vulnerable. Sometimes I'll use if I think that there's something there, sometimes I'll use just a little phrase, you know, like I love Adele, and she has a song called Rumor Has It. And I'll say, oh, you know, rumor has it, blah, blah, blah. And then everyone can kind of go, oh yeah, it's a rumor, but it's actually real. It's actually real. Let's have a talk about that, you know.
That's
so little things like that bring the truth out into the open without judgment. And then
it's just like, it just makes me think like, sorry, missed that?
Oh, and then you can work on it and move forward together.
Rather than like obviously ignoring the elephant in the room and everyone just trying to like pretend it's not there, which I can imagine, and well, I know as well, just does not help anyone do anything. So thank you, Claire.
And elephants are sometimes not as scary as everyone thinks.
And it's also true, like I think when you are keeping something inside or you're not speaking up, like I know personally when I'm doing that, it affects you more than you realize, and you're not doing your best job because you're almost pretending everything's okay when it's not. And then if things aren't getting addressed, then we can't move on to actually working and serving our customers. So it is such an important thing to get it out, sort it out, and then move on.
It's liberating. It's actually liberating, and it's liberating for everyone. And the other thing is it brings respect in teams very fast, because we all look up at the leaders and say, are they willing to deal with this issue? Everybody knows it, right? They're all looking at the leader going, are they willing to deal with this issue? Because if they're not, you know, well, I don't know whether I'll stay, or, you know, I'll stay, but I won't give everything I've got to this job because, you know, that leader's not willing to lean into the issues and that are going to, you know, help our company be successful or help us as a team. So, so I think it's, and, you know, again, that vulnerability, the two work in partnership actually, because someone will have experienced or done something similar before. So we don't have to be the keepers of all the knowledge. We have to be the honest people who look at the problem and then go and find how we're going to get the solution sorted. And we'll learn from others. And then again, that learning approach allows it to be safe to say, you know what, I don't actually know how to do this. I don't know how to solve this problem. Claire, what do you think? Sam, what do you think? What have you seen that might, you know, be applicable here? And that kind of context then makes it safe for, like, it feeds on itself and it gets safer and safer to talk about what's really going on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're right. It's like that snowball effect. So yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Trust is something that does require work to build. And when you've built it, it can be lost quickly, but when you've built it, it can also strengthen over time.
And it tends to go hand in hand with that respect piece as well. I've certainly found, like, in my life, the two, you know, there's never usually trust if there's no respect. So yeah.
Yeah. But even cranky customers or cranky employees, we have to respect. They see something going on in the organization and it's uncomfortable. And sometimes, you know, the biggest critics have been the ones who've provided the greatest insight too. So you don't want to just, you know, you've got to make it safe for the uncomfortable people to share their perspective, or the people we find uncomfortable, that's probably a better way to put it, but the people we find uncomfortable to share their perspective, just as much as the person who you feel really comfortable with and you want them to grow and learn and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you said, you know, about them seeing something that the leader is not, and that is such an interesting point, because particularly, I suppose, the larger organizations get, the leader is not everywhere all at once and not seeing things also at the same level. Yeah, so that's just a really interesting point. And I think it's good to encourage, you know, just thinking about the message to others as well. You know, we've got listeners who are both leaders and not, but if you're not, it's a really interesting thing to think about, like, what can I share that can be valuable that they may not seeing? Because you know, I'm guilty of thinking, oh, well, how come they don't know this, or how come they haven't noticed this? But it's potentially that it's just not visible to them.
Yeah. And this is where David Marquette's book's really interesting, because, you know, he talks about the engineer right down on one of the machines, knew exactly what was wrong with the machine, but the system, he had to fill in 15 forms and, you know, it had to be reviewed by 20 people. And most of those people didn't know how to work that machine. And if you empower the individual to bring leadership to the machine, he would have fixed it on the spot. And so, you know, so we may not be in formal leadership roles, but we all have a leadership role in bringing the best we can into the world in terms of what we do. So, you know, a teacher bringing the best teaching environment for the kids in that room to grow, in that classroom to grow. You're not necessarily managing 15 people, but you're managing a class to get a great outcome in learning for the kids. So we often have very narrow definition of leadership being just those who manage people. But there's leadership to be delivered at all levels of society and all levels of activity.
And it's up to us to take on that responsibility and do what's needed to bring our best to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, apologies, I had to mute myself a couple of times there. You could probably hear the puppy was barking in the background, so I was trying to minimize disruption to your amazing wisdom you were sharing. So sorry.
That's all right. I get in the zone. I don't even hear any of that. So.
I love the chat, Claire, and as expected, you delivered so much wisdom to me, which I'm so excited to be able to pass on to the audience. So yeah, I really am grateful for your time.
Thanks for the opportunity, Sam. And I think we just sent through the paragraph to Paul today to go in the newsletter.
Yes, exactly. I was just thinking, yeah. So, and that's perfect timing. So for those watching the show, using technology better, we have a monthly newsletter for our education audience, and Claire has put a lovely little paragraph together to let you know more about Oho. So yes, so my colleague Paul is going to pull that all together, and that'll be in there. And we'll also link everything in the show notes. But before we sign off, maybe you can just generally let people know where to find you and Oho. That would be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Our website is www.weareoho, all one word, oho.com. So look forward to seeing you on the site or in person. If you want to contact us, we're very happy to have a chat and fill you in and come and talk about your specific situation and what you need.
Excellent. We'll definitely have all that there. So, well, you enjoy the rest of what is left of the year. You are my very final guest for season 3. So I'm super excited that we've wrapped up on such a high. So yeah, thanks so much
Sam.
again, Claire. See you later. Hello again, welcome back. And wasn't that such an interesting conversation with Claire? Totally didn't disappoint, met all my expectations. That I knew she was going to have some amazing wisdom to share, and she sure did. I was trying to just, reflect on my biggest takeaway. And I think for me, it's really that thing of, it's okay when you're facing uncertainty and there is that problem, because someone would have faced something similar, and there is going to be wisdom out there that you can draw on to actually solve it for yourself, for your team, for your organization, which is a very different idea of thinking than like, oh my goodness, I'm the leader, I've got to have all this sorted out. So I think it's a really important message for all of you watching who are in any kind of leadership position or just want to take, responsibility and accountability for your day-to-day work. So that, and hey, creating that space, safe space, was such a valuable message as well. So that is it for the show today. As you can hear, the puppy wants to say goodbye as well, which is a very fitting end. We are ending season 3 today with the show as well. So I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you that have been tuning in through season 1, season 2, season 3. Really appreciate the comments and the feedback you give me. I really hope that you find the show valuable. If you have been loving it, I'd love you to rate and review as well on your favorite podcast app. Don't call that out too often, but hey, why not? Now, in terms of the links that for the show, so Oho and the other things Claire mentioned, as always, they're in the show notes. And hey, last chance for the season too. Subscribe to the Using Technology Better YouTube channel, follow the show on your favorite podcast app, and of course, sign up for the fortnightly newsletter. So I've got some exciting things coming for 2022, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you as we go. So thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you again soon for another bite-sized piece of the learning adventure that is life. See you next year.